So there's this landmark trial happening right now, and it's a huge deal. We're talking families taking on some of the biggest names in tech. Let's dive into this lawsuit, because honestly, it could change the internet as we know it.
And really, this whole thing boils down to one massive and kind of provocative question. Are social media platforms intentionally designed to be addictive? Like, is this an accident, or was it a deliberate choice that's having some pretty serious consequences for kids?
Okay, so the stage is set for a major courtroom showdown. I mean, after years of getting ready for this, jury selection is finally happening. This is it, the kickoff to a legal fight that could have just massive repercussions.
So who's in the ring? Well, on one side, you've got the plaintiffs. These are families who are saying their kids have been seriously, gravely harmed. And on the other side, you've got the defendants, the tech titans themselves. We're talking Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, and also Google's YouTube.
And the accusation here, it's at the core of this whole 300-page lawsuit. And it's a big one. The families are claiming that these companies didn't just accidentally make something addictive. Nope. The argument is that they intentionally engineered these platforms to hook their youngest, most vulnerable users.
And just as a side note here, it wasn't just Meta and YouTube in the hot seat at first. TikTok and Snapchat were also named in the original lawsuit. But they've both already decided to settle their cases out of court.
All right, so let's get into the plaintiff's case. What's the foundation of their argument? Let's break down exactly what they're accusing these tech giants of doing.
There's this quote from a legal expert following the case that I think just perfectly sums up the family's perspective. It's basically this idea that kids just don't stand a chance. Think about it. You have these developing brains going up against the smartest, most sophisticated designers in the world. It's a huge power imbalance.
And the lawsuit gets super specific here. It actually points to alleged internal company emails. The plaintiffs say these documents prove the companies knew this stuff could be harmful, but they just forged ahead anyway to prioritize growth. The argument is that this wasn't some mistake, it was a deliberate strategy. And the kicker? They're also accused of lying to Congress about what their own research found.
Okay, but of course, there are two sides to every story. So how are the tech companies responding to all this? What's their defense against these incredibly serious allegations?
Well, Meta has come out swinging with a really strong denial. Their official statement basically says they strongly disagree with all of this. They're confident that the evidence is going to show their long-standing commitment to supporting young people.
And they're pointing to specific things they've done. They say, look, we've spent more than a decade listening to parents and experts. We've introduced special accounts for teens that have protections built right in. And we've given parents tools to help manage what their kids are doing on the platform.
And then there's the big one, their main legal shield, Section 230. You've probably heard of it. It's this federal law that tech companies have leaned on for decades. Basically, in simple terms, it says a platform isn't legally on the hook for what its users post. And that has been their go-to defense in cases like this for a long, long time.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The plaintiffs have a new strategy. It's a really clever legal move designed specifically to get around Section 230.
Okay, so here's the core of their whole argument. They're not talking about the content, the posts, the videos. That's what Section 230 protects. Instead, they're arguing that the product itself is defective. It's a product liability claim. Think of it like this. A car company can't get sued for what someone says on the radio in their car, but they absolutely can be sued if the car's brakes were designed badly. The plaintiffs are saying the design of these apps, that's the faulty brakes.
So the whole idea is to frame social media not as some kind of neutral public square, but as an inherently defective product. A product where the key features, that infinite scroll that gives you a little dopamine hit, or the algorithms that pull you down these rabbit holes, they're arguing those things are engineered to cause addiction. And that addiction, they say, leads to real harm. But this is where the plaintiffs hit their biggest wall. They have to prove causation, right? It's one thing to say that, yeah, doom scrolling is probably not good for you. It's a totally different thing to prove in court that one specific design feature directly caused one specific child's depression or an eating disorder. Drawing that direct line is going to be really, really tough.
So stepping back from all the complex legal talk for a second, it's so important to remember what this trial is really about at its core. It's about the human impact, the real-world effect on kids and their families.
And here's a key detail. This is a jury trial. That means you're going to have a group of everyday people listening to all this testimony. And when parents get on the stand and start talking about their kids experiencing bullying, self-harm, or even suicide, and they connect it back to these platforms, that emotional testimony can be unbelievably powerful no matter how complex the legal arguments get.
And the data seems to back up at least some of these concerns. Pew Research actually asked teens what they think about social media, and the results are pretty telling. Nearly half of them describe it in mostly negative terms, and only a tiny slice, just 11%, see it as mostly positive.
Just think about that number for a second, 48%. Almost half of teens themselves feel like it's a negative thing in their lives. And that really gets to the plaintiff's argument about addiction, right? It's that feeling of knowing something is harmful, but feeling like you just can't stop.
So this all leads to this huge question about what's next. I mean, if the jury does side with the families, could this one verdict completely reshape the future of social media? Not just here, but everywhere.
And that really leaves us with the biggest question of all, the one at the very heart of this trial that goes way beyond the courtroom. With all this powerful, persuasive tech that's so wrapped up in our lives, where do we draw the line? Where does a company's responsibility to make a safe product end and our own personal responsibility to use it wisely begin?